Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to the show. This is our fourth episode on the podcast called Game Changer, where we invite people that have had experience in business, people that have either started up several companies, exited successfully, and it's about finding out what their experiences are, the hardships they've had, the challenges, and what's got them to where they are today. So today we have a gentleman called Bhupinder Sidhu, and affectionately known as Sid to everyone. He'll give you his contact details later on. He's had 4 startups with 3 successful exits, and through some conversations with him, he's got a whole lot of interesting information for entrepreneurs and business people that have started up or on their journey. So welcome, Sid, and thank you very much for joining us once again. The floor is yours. Just give us a rundown, Sid, in whatever order you fancy, that has brought you from the idea of being an entrepreneur to being someone who's done it 4 times and exited 3 times. We want to hear your story. So the floor is over to you, Sid.
Brilliant. Well, again, morning, afternoon, evening to Mark and his listeners. My journey is probably goes back to my father and his journey. So, big fan of entrepreneurship. Big believer in all of us should be able to choose where we want to live and build a life around that place. But what I found through my career and the same for my dad was that to have that vibrant entrepreneurship community, you need people actually involved in the act of entrepreneurship, business ownership, rather than just talking about it. So I'm a real fan of getting communities together that are in the business entrepreneurship space and connecting them and getting them to talk. And I guess my father's example was that we moved into a small town in North Warwickshire, out of inner city Birmingham, because he wanted a better life for his family, and he set up his own business. And the business thrived in that community because he became a real heartbeat of the people that he was looking after and serving. And even when the large corporates came along, the Asdas, the Sainsbury's, what I found, and it used to annoy me at the time actually, was a lot of his customers went to shop there, but whenever they were ill, they would phone up, and he was called like Daddy Sid and I was Little Sid, and they'd phone up and say, would drop round some bread, some milk, because we're not very well. And my dad used to do it, and I used to think, why are you doing that for people that no longer use you? But he had a real sense of community. He was like, I'm not here just to make money. I'm here to serve and help the community that I live in. So that's been a real driver for me around entrepreneurship. Profit is important because without profit, you don't exist as a viable business. But it's also as much about communities of people working and living together. So again, I have this belief that wherever you live, if you're making money in that community, you should spend money in that community. So your accountant, your solicitor, your website, all the services that you need should come from that local place. But for a lot of us, we don't do that because we find it difficult to find the right people of the right quality on our doorstep. And that's why I set up Find a Business Expert, because it was around, there are really good people in every part of the world, but quite often they're not easy to find because the large corporates drown them out, and particularly, in this digital social media world, you need quite deep pockets to create a brand and create a presence. And what we do is, with a very affordable investment, we get the local entrepreneurs found and working together and creating those communities, which ultimately benefits everybody else that lives in that location. And I've got lots of stories like this, but personally, I would rather see 4 accountants earning £250,000 each than one accountant earning £1 million, because I think that distribution of wealth is far better for the community as a whole, because more of that money then gets spread across the community and spent. There's only so many rooms you can use in a house. There's only so many cars you can drive at any one time. So let's spread that well, and get a better distribution.
So it sounds like you've touched on something there which is very close to my heart. And it's something that, very successful people that I've spoken about not just looking at it from your own point of view in terms of for your own benefit and your own financial wealth and your own security, but having a bigger picture, something that's going to be, for the good of the community and for the world and its societies in general. How, when you spoke about your dad taking on this, delivering things to people when they were ill, when they couldn't go to, to the big corporates, how much would you say that contributed to your mindset at the moment?
A huge amount, again, we all, obviously we learn a lot from our parents and how they behave. And my dad was very much about everybody's equal, everyone. So he'd do small, things like when the bin men came along and it was a hot day, he'd go out with juice for them, and he'd treat everybody the same. And it really sort of resonated with me that everybody's equal. Spread the love, give to people, support them. By giving to people, you will get back. So it was around, I think, that really resonated, that it's not all about profit. It's about being a good person in a community, creating that community feel, and everybody then prospers and gels as a unit. So we ended up, I had an absolutely brilliant childhood in a place that I lived. It was a place where I think a town of 10,000 people, we were the only sort of Asian people in the whole community, but we were very well respected and got on because we became part of that community and we helped gel it all together.
Yeah, hearts and minds is a big thing. I come from South African background. I have got all kinds of various other different ethnicities. Some of it is Indian, some of it is Jewish. There's, I'm kind of like a Heinz mixed variety, if you like. And in South Africa, there's a saying among the Xhosa people that's called Ubuntu, and it means I am because we are. So it's a very community-based thing. There's a story about some kids when settlers first got there many hundreds of years ago that had a bag of sweets, and they put that bag of sweets next to a tree somewhere and said, right, the first one to that tree gets the bag of sweets. And the kids apparently all grabbed each other's hands, hand in hand, and ran towards the tree, sat around in a circle, and shared the sweets. So it's that kind of a mindset. It's not often that you see that in today's entrepreneurs, because it's a very cutthroat, certainly from my experience, very cutthroat and competitive society. And while competition is good, because I think without competition, there's no impetus or incentive to get further. Some people may have their own views on that. How does that, is there anything that's been conflicting for you in bringing those two different mindsets together?
Interestingly, I'd probably go the opposite to that with COVID as an example. So I think COVID, for many reasons, was a reset opportunity, a reset button. What I noticed in communities all over the world was that the large corporate, let's say in the UK, because we had furlough in the UK, the large corporates furloughed their staff and went missing, but businesses still needed to operate. And the owner-led businesses, those accountants, listers, websites, all those businesses that didn't get furlough, that were still part of the community, they stepped forward and they helped out in terms of bringing things together. So the local greengrocer, the butcher, all the other businesses that support community, they were open, they were doing deliveries, they were helping the customers that they knew were vulnerable, because they know people on a one-to-one basis. The large corporate retailers, for them it was just about profiteering from the situation. It was furloughing staff, so the government paid their wages, and so then that actually reinforced the need for communities to come together and exist without the large corporates. Like you hear about the death of the high street, and a lot of the small independent businesses are being pushed out by the larger ones. Your food and everything's coming from all over the world, which isn't environmentally friendly. So there's a lot of reasons why community, growing, living, shopping locally really benefits. And I felt COVID actually demonstrated that again to a lot of people. So for me, it can exist. You can absolutely have the right heart, mindset, and profit. As I said earlier on, businesses are not charities, that they need to be financially viable. You need to make a profit. But all of those things can sit together rather than be in isolation.
Yeah. And, there's a saying that goes, not many very successful people out there have done it on their own. It's about having teamwork. It's about having the right people around you. How have you used that in your ventures, Sid?
A really good question, because one of the things we find a business expert that we advocate is supplier selection. So for a lot of us, when we think about success and all the theory and things that we read, people say build a great team, but that team is external as well as internal. And quite often, I'll say to business owners, you've got a vacancy in your business. How will you fill that vacancy? And I'd say 99% of people, top of their head, will say, well, define the job, put a job description out, CV shift, go through 3 interviews, go for psychometric testing. And even after all of that, they'll do references and a probationary period. So you got a very robust sort of 7-step process. So what about choosing your supplier? I'll ask a friend or ask family, or even worse, I'll go on LinkedIn, Facebook, social media and say, can anyone recommend a website designer? Can anyone I'm like, just listen to yourself and the flaw that you've got in your supplier selection versus your internal. And both of those stakeholders are equally important. So for me, building a team is due diligence for on your employees as well as on your suppliers. And most of us don't have the time to do the due diligence, which again is what Find a Business Expert does, is it does that due diligence on behalf of business owners, completely free to use. They can come in, they can look for whatever service they want, get a selection, investigate that selection around, is the chemistry right, and then ultimately have a conversation with them on video conference, and then choose somebody that's right for them without having to do a lot of the legwork, but also without having to run the lottery of recommendations, particularly on social media. So for me is, and again, when I look at the successes that I've had and some of the organisations that I've worked in, supplier selection is a very robust process. Procurement teams, a lot of due diligence around the insurance, the experience, the qualifications, even site visits can happen. And it's taking that mindset and applying it into the startup, small business ownership, but without the cost. And that's where we come in. We can give you all of that rigor and due diligence, and it's completely free to use because we've done the heavy lifting for you.
Your customers love ordering flowers online to gift to their loved ones. With your very own app, they will be able to experience full commerce shopping, which makes purchasing flowers online easier than ever. When buying flowers online, imagery is vital in driving sales. The gallery allows customers to view images using Apple's Cover Flow style navigation. As a florist, just think how exciting it is to be able to create as many galleries as you need.
I think that's, for people that are in the business, they'll certainly understand the value of that, because you mentioned furlough and things like that. I was part of a group of people that were furloughed during the COVID lockdown times. But there was a lot of uncertainty about that because nobody knew how long that was going to continue for. And, that's kind of like what got me into doing my own business with my partner, is the uncertainty around it, the responsibilities that you still have, and not being a sitting duck and waiting for the axe to fall, and then you've got no income. So, from that, furlough was a good thing because it gave us a lot of support, and I think most of us are very thankful for that. And at the same time, it gave us the opportunity to think and breathe and maybe have a different perspective. In your own business,
in that year, Mark, was it 2021? But on average, in the UK, there are 600,000 new businesses started every year. In that COVID year, there were 900,000.
Wow.
Because of exactly what you said, furlough gave people the opportunity to sit back and think about, actually, I might be doing a great job, but if the business isn't run well and whatever, then I'm made redundant. So I need to create my own secure income. So a lot of people did exactly what you did. They got, and I think I talked about being able to choose where you want to live, build a life around you. Again, COVID and remote working has made that more accessible to people. But even now, there's still, there's organisations that are trying to get people back into the office. They're trying to, Monday, Friday, 9-5, you sit here at your desk. You might be on Teams calls or Zoom calls all day.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant whether you're in the office but it's that control, and it's like, the employer controls you, they want to see you, whereas the more forward-thinking employers, it's not, you're not employed for your time, you're employed for your output. And if you can do that far more efficiently anywhere in the world, why shouldn't you be given the opportunity to do that? So then I think, running your own business and working for a good employer starts to become a bit blurred around what's the best option. Because, running your own business is a massive amount of risk. What frustrates me is there's a lot of rhetoric around entrepreneurship, go out, start your business, have freedom. What people don't talk about is 1 in 3 businesses fail in the first year. The 2 that get through, only 1 of them gets through year 5. In that journey, there's a lot of emotional pain, financial, marriages, relationships, you're working long hours. It's not an easy ride to create a business that ultimately then gives you the freedom that you want. But for most people, it's like you're working and you've got a side hustle and you do the 2 in tandem, and you try and get to a point where the side hustle becomes consistent enough that it can become your main source of income.
Yeah, that's an interesting point there. Some of us, we've all got different people that we look up to in terms of, what did they do to become so successful? Now, he's not everybody's cup of tea, Mr. Dan Pena. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but, he does these QLA sessions at his castle in Scotland. He's a tough nut. He doesn't take any prisoners. He says lots of contentious things that sometimes are quite cringy when you listen to them, because they just don't fit in people's minds today, in society. But I'm from the 70s, so I'm 52 this year, and things were, my parents were quite tough. They weren't softies at all. So there was a lot of tough love in my growing up, and it was all about being independent, being strong, being capable. Which in itself, there's many flaws in that, because at the end of the day, you're still human and you need to allow yourself to accept that. But, Dan's sort of idea is about, yes, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. You need a certain mindset, and some of the things he teaches, he does say that these things will, there's a chance that this will destroy your marriage. This will drive your friends away from you. This will leave you on your own. But it depends how far you want to go with that. What's your take on things like that, Sid?
I often get asked by new founders, people that may got redundant, they've got a package, they've got a skill, they want to then turn that into a business, and they say, right, Steve, so what's the shortcut? What's the quickest way? There is no silver bullet. The only thing it's hard work, so I often say to people, it's really weird or really odd. The harder I work, the luckier I get, and there's a relationship there. So again, you mentioned your parents. So like my dad had 2 businesses, working from 6 in the morning till 10 at night, 6 days a week, and then Sunday shorter hours. We only had a bit of time off. My mom had 2 or 3 jobs. They worked hard, but they created this family environment. And I think successful businesses need a lot of work. It's about the hard yards, putting the hours in, to get the foundation. You have to wear a lot of hats within an organization, when you're first starting out to get to that point. But there's this thing around, don't be fooled by DIY, doing things yourself, where if you reach out to the experts, people who have been there, done that, and you find the right person for your business, then they can add a lot of value, and they can sort of short circuit some of that learning curve, because you don't need to know everything. You need to find people, coming back to your point, surround yourself with good people, internally, externally. Make sure you pick them, through a rigorous and robust process. and then let them get on with it. Let them do the things that they're good at. So you concentrate on what you're good at. So I mentioned, I talk to a lot of people that go through redundancies. They've got a package and they've got a particular skill. They want to turn that into a business. And I say to them, focus on that skill, because that's where you will add value. Yeah. Let somebody else do the accounts. Let somebody else build the website. Let somebody else do the social media. Let somebody else do some of the lead generation, because you're most powerful when you're in front of prospects and clients talking about the skill that you have, not everything else. And too many of us try and do everything on a low budget, and we end up then making lives harder for ourselves. I'm a big fan, rightly or wrongly, of you have to speculate to accumulate. You have to back yourself, invest in yourself, get those people on board, invest in them to get the best chance of success. And I think it's a false economy when you think you're saving money by doing your own books, creating your own website, doing your own content. Give it to the experts.
Yeah. You mentioned something there, Sid, about chemistry when it comes to supplier selection and surrounding yourself with the right people and not trying to do everything yourself. Now, I will confess that that's something that I've done many times in different places. I come from an engineering background, so I've been an engineer for 30-something years. And during that time, I've been guilty many times of doing a 2-man job by myself or a 3-man job by myself, because I'll find a way to use tools and equipment to do it. But that's purely based around, I think, from my upbringing about you must be independent, don't rely too much on other people. So it's been a journey for me to overcome that thinking, because that is certainly not going to work in business. Apart from your own personal story that you've just told us now, have you got any sort of tips, apart from consistently working on it, on how people can short-circuit that part of the journey from being over-reliant on themselves and finding the right people to surround themselves with?
Yeah, again, obviously, I'm biased because I talk about find a business expert, but that sits in what is now what is known today as the on-demand economy. So the on-demand economy, and you've got some players like Fiverr and Upwork, and lots of other players within the US. But what that's enabled business owners and decision makers to do is to go and find the skills specifically for that challenge or that project quite easily, bring them on board, get them to do it, and then release them so you're not carrying overhead. So I think the tip is, back in the day, before I guess these platforms were available, businesses would have generalists, an HR director, a sales director, an IT director that would be the jack of all trades. They'd know a little bit about everything. And the reason that we did that, I think, because recruitment, is a time-consuming process. And if you had to go and find somebody for every task before these platforms were available, it just wouldn't be, you wouldn't get the ROI. No. But today you can, if you've got an issue in your business with employee motivation, you can find somebody for that. An issue with your business, around timekeeping, contract, you can find somebody for that. Mm-hmm. An issue with a CRM, an issue with hardware, an issue with software. Your website it's getting lots of traffic, but it isn't converting it into inquiries. That's right, CX, UX. So every problem that you've got, you can niche that down into specifically, I need an expert in this area. And you jump on these on-demand platforms and you find the right person and you check that chemistry exists. Because interestingly, you mentioned chemistry, and again, I've done quite a lot of research on this. What we found was, maybe you and I, Mark, might have a mutual friend. And so I say to my friend, I'm looking for an engineering chap. Oh, I know Mark. He's brilliant. Go and talk to Mark. So I come to you and I say, Mark, Sarah recommended me to you. As soon as I say that, you're rubbing your hands, because you know that I'm unlikely to say no to your services, because we've got this mutual. Even if my gut feel, I go, Mark's a great engineer, but actually he's really good at this and I need this. You're not going to turn away the business, because we all need to put food on the table. I'm not going to say no to you because Sarah's a mutual friend. So we end up in this relationship, which I often say it's a bit like a bad marriage, right? Where it's not quite working, but nobody wants to fix it. Nobody wants to walk away. So we just carry on in this relationship.
Yeah.
And it's avoiding that. So find the person that's specifically skilled for the job that you need.
Yeah.
Make sure the chemistry works. So are they working in a style and a time that suits you? Again, as a founder, you know, most of us think accountant, solicitor, Monday, Friday, 9-5. There's plenty of these professionals that will meet you before 9 o'clock, after 5 o'clock, on a weekend. So they will meet you at a time that suits you and a place that suits you. Could be online, you know, could be at your home, their home. So you don't have to conform to you have to go to them, to their office. Because again, when you're doing that, that time is money. You know, you're traveling there. It's in the middle of the day. You wait around because they're delayed. You have the chit chat. All of that is time and energy.
Yeah.
Why not just find somebody that does it at a time that suits you on a video conference call, you know, or if you like going face to face, go and do it face to face.
Yeah.
Those people exist, and it's easier to find them now.
Yeah.
And it's easier to check the chemistry to say, yeah, is that person right for me? So on that point, we all have, it's called unconditional bias. So when we're looking for a supplier for a certain service, we might already in our mind, unconscious bias, we might already have an idea of what that person looks like, sounds like, qualifications. And so we're drawn to that individual. So as an example, you know, if I want a graphic artist, graphic designer, I want somebody with a long beard, tattoos, a skateboard, you know, ripped jeans. Now, if an accountant presented like that, I'd think, oh, you know, I want a shirt and tie. That's just me. But all of us have these unconscious biases.
Yeah.
And in this new on-demand world, we can check that chemistry fits what we're after and they work at a time and a place that we want to meet with them. And there you're already starting on a much better footing because the relationship is equal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like that person says, right, Sid, you have to come to my office on Friday, 1 o'clock, and we'll do. And I'm thinking, I don't want to travel. I don't want to travel on a Friday. 1 o'clock's like, you know, whatever it might. But I'm having to give up some of my stuff in order to dance to the supplier's tune.
Yeah.
In our world, the buyer really calls the shots, and the suppliers are more aware of that, and so they are now dancing to the buyer's tunes and making sure that it's a much more equitable relationship.
Yeah. Hello everyone, this is Mark Sauls from OpsDel3000.com, and I'm here to tell you something that I know you're going to find of interest. There are 73 different ways to grow your business, and to find out what they are, all you have to do is book a 30-minute free consultation with me. That's right, free, to get 73 different ways to grow your business that you can walk away with at the end of the meeting if you choose to work with somebody else, or you can work with me and my specialist team to make it happen. Now, back to the podcast. You mentioned something there about, you know, when we work with people that are close to us or come as a recommendation from somebody else we know, there's already, you know, there's some preformed notions that are going to make us work with those people regardless of what the output is. And, you know, some of our customers are friends and family. And fortunately, touch wood, everything's been fine up to now. But I'm also quite, I've got some strong views on what it means to work with people, you know, because it's very difficult to make a change if you have to. So, for example, if you've got these people, friends and family employed by you, if they are not delivering what needs to be delivered, not because you've got 1,000 KPIs that you need to satisfy, but in a small business, everyone should generally, in my view, have a vested interest in what's going on, because that's why they can put their passion into it and actually make something happen. But I think sometimes that's taken away if you've got any other relationship apart from a business relationship with someone working with you. There's no easy way to do this, but have you been in a situation like that where you've had, you know, what you described as a marriage that's not working in terms of business with people, and what did you do about it?
You know, I've had quite a few. So I've had, when I probably about 8 years ago. I did a management buyout of a financial services company. I was recommended a particular expert. I went to see them, and he didn't tell me that he didn't have experience in financial services is VAT exempt, and we were getting a building, and what we should have done was set up another company with VAT and play. But this particular expert didn't have any clients in that space. Didn't tell me at the time. I found out then over a period of conversations. I thought, this person is learning about my sector and my problem at the same time that I'm paying them for that knowledge. So I was like, I was quite frustrated around that sort of circumstance. But it took me a long time to walk away, because you're right. It's a really sort of brave decision maker, whether that's the founder or somebody else in the organization, to then make that decision to walk away, which is why I advocate don't get it wrong in the first place. Get it right. And there's an age-old saying, I think it's from the 1980s, which is nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM. Have you ever heard that, Mark?
I have, yeah.
When you boil it down, what it means is, and this happens a lot in businesses, where the owner might say to somebody, we need X. That person does their research, and they've got a sort of owner-led organization over here. They know really good service, they know what they want, and then they've got a more corporate business over here. They will naturally gravitate towards the corporate business, because if things don't go well, other people, the line manager and other people in the business will say, I understand why Sid chose IBM over ABC Computers. Whereas if you choose ABC Computers, which is founder-led, and it doesn't go right, people go, why did you work with them? So we do have this natural gravitation towards these larger businesses, and then we stay with them because we feel that other people will understand our decision-making process. So my view, now is don't make that, because it's really hard to get out of a relationship. And have I ever walked out of a relationship and still stayed on friendly terms? Probably not, because whilst you're in it, the founder, the business owner is suffering. When you're out of it, the supplier is suffering because they've lost your business. So you never end up neither party ever ends up in a good place. So the key is, don't get it wrong in the first place. Do that due diligence. If you can't do the due diligence, go to a platform like Find a Business Expert or something where they've done it for you. Bearing in mind that a lot of the larger platforms that I've referenced don't actually do any vetting on the people that they present. So it's trying to find organizations that do thorough vetting for you, which means that, you're less likely to get to the wrong supplier. So that answer, I mean, I've done, my sister will hate me for this. But I remember when she was a graduate and she was looking for work, I put her into a company that I was working with. And she got a little bit like, my brother is one of the senior directors here, so I can do what I want. And she became a little bit lazy, so I fired her. And Christmas dinner was probably the most uncomfortable dinner I had, because my dad wasn't happy, right? That I fired her. But it taught her a lesson. She's very, very successful now. So that's one where, I thought, I've not made the right choice here. I need to do something. And I directly felt the consequences of doing something by, I'm sure I got a smaller portion of Christmas dinner than everybody else around the table. And my glass wasn't topped up as regularly. So there is always fallout when you have a supplier relationship. It's not working. You've got to get out of it. That's why so many people don't, because it's really difficult to get out of it. So the advice is, do more due diligence up front, so you don't end up in these poor relationships for your business. Because ultimately, that's what it's about. I like what you said earlier, that everybody's a stakeholder, internally, externally, and if you're all pointing in the right direction, you're all pointing towards a good outcome, good business, delivering good client outcomes, you've got a much better likelihood of success than people working against you and people being there not on merit but on relationships. And generally what you find is those individuals know that they're not doing a good job. So they actually work harder to stay working with you than delivering, than putting their energy into do, because they know then that, oh, this isn't going well. So I just need to keep this relationship going for as long as I can.
Yeah.
More energy gets invested in that than gets invested in the output they're supposed to be delivering for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I come from an aviation background, so when I first started off, it was instruments, electrics, and radio, so anything to do with electronics and electrics. And there's a principle there. I mainly worked on big aircrafts because I feel a lot safer when there's 4 engines and not just one. And each engine has its own generator, and those generators power the entire aircraft. But they can do it individually, or you put them in something called parallel, where they all power the same bus bar, which powers all the services. Now, I'm not going to bore you too much with that, but
so would you just on that example then, would you have an individual who is very good at the single engine, somebody else who's very good at the 4 engines? There's a bit of crossover, but actually, if I'm the owner of an aviation business with single engine, I want single engine experts.
Yeah.
Well, I want, so exactly that, within every sector, you can niche down into individual bits where somebody's better than somebody else.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, you want to find the best fit for your business, your sector, your way of working. And then that gives you the best chance of being successful.
Yeah, that's 100% true, because I've not really worked on single engines, but I've worked on twin engines. I've worked on business jets, but I'm a 747 guy because that's my favorite aircraft. And
the big stuff.
It takes a lot to bring that down. That's safe hands. So when you've got these 4 generators powering the same bus, they have to have the same frequency within a very, very tight tolerance. Otherwise, one will jump off the bus and power its own. So when it comes to creating some kind of synergy and synchrony between the people you work with, unless you have that in terms of chemistry and mindset and vision and, that mutual investment in things, then you're going to have people powering their own buses, so to speak. Yeah. And I come from that kind of environment where in the early days as a manager, I used to be quite siloed. I trust in myself, work with myself, design things by myself. And fair enough, sometimes they're quite good. But the missed opportunity in getting other people involved in what you are building and making deprives the whole project of a lot of energy that could take it a lot further than doing it by yourself, especially if it's people from the right mindset. When it takes too long to find that, Sid, what do we do?
Well, interestingly, so on that point, there's a really one of my favourite business books is Good to Great. I don't know if you ever come across it with Jim Collins.
No, I'll listen to that.
And he talks about the first thing in any organisation is get the right people on the bus. Now, I'm not sure if he talks about no, he's referencing more internally. I'm also referencing externally. And there's probably more written about it in today's world around that whole stakeholder piece. So the right investor, the right shareholder, the right suppliers, the right employees. Get all the right stakeholders on the bus.
Yeah.
And then the bus is pointing in the right direction. So it's interesting that you reference that, and it's a really good book. Yeah. I think, but it's quite an old book now. But I think it's got a lot of really good lessons in it around going from a good business to a great business and the steps that you need to take.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely be looking at that. I'm a fan of Dale Carnegie's book, Winning Friends and Influencing People. And that's reading that book. I've read that book so many times and written my own book based on my own personal experiences using those principles and, the fact that they are actually true and they work. Yeah. So we're coming towards the last few minutes of the podcast. Sid. I know you've got millions of stories. If you were to choose one that, that's really been a game changer for you or that's going to change the game of other people, which one would it be?
That's a tough. I'm sure everyone says that's a tough question. So what's the single I've had a lot of success in my career. Interestingly, at the very start, you said successful exits. They haven't all been successful, in that, I think as a business owner, founder, when we're building, whatever we're building, we have a valuation that we want to exit. Very few people get to the valuation that they want. So you end up with lots of other factors that then contribute to the final price. So, I'd rarely say that I've got the figure that was in my mind, but I've ended up, doing okay out of it and getting exits. And through that, it comes back to that supplier selection. The game changer for me is, I know that lots of founders do the right thing when they're employing. We referenced that earlier about the 7-step process. Use the same rigor and methodology when you're choosing your suppliers. It makes me cringe when I see professionals all over the world go onto social media and say, can anybody recommend X, financial advisor, accountant? Where I'm like, on what planet, right, did anyone ever say that social media recommendations from random people on social media is the best way to choose your business infrastructure? And we've gone a little bit further, actually. We've done some research on this, and typically, on average, you'll get 30 odd recommendations. 90% of them have never used the person they're recommending. So what, you might put on and say, I need X. I might know somebody, a friend of mine, a family member that runs that business. I'll say, Mark, you need to talk to Paul. I'll never use Paul. It's that misplaced loyalty where I think I'm helping you, but I'm actually helping the supplier, and I have no evidence as to whether the supplier is any good or not. There are membership organisations out there that give their members points for generating leads for other members. Again, a lot of them have never used the person they're recommending. They just put it. So that to me is completely flawed, because you're only getting 10% of the recommendations that have actually used the person that they're recommending. And not all of them are happy with the service they're getting, but they just think, well, I'm helping this other person. So that to me is an absolute no-no. Spend more time, get the right people, and just think more broadly around. You don't want to use the same person. Maybe you might ask a family member. They might recommend somebody. You might meet somebody in your own networking membership group, and they might recommend somebody. But if that person has been recommended a lot, and generally, people have a toolkit, like the supplier will have a toolkit of what they say to all their clients. Sometimes you want to break out that toolkit. You want something a little bit different. You want something a bit more innovative. Somebody from a different sector. And I mentioned about, make sure they've got experience, but you don't always want the same set of suppliers in it, for an organisation in the sector. So I always think, do your own due diligence, spend time and energy on that supplier selection, and then you've got a better chance of being successful. And what else have I had as a game changer?
Let me help you with that one. So I know, you've taken some great example and guidance from, from the example that your dad left as a business person. The whole community spirit and community building attitude towards things, and that we can all do it together and we don't have to compete with each other to death. So that's now your comfort zone, Sid, if I'm right in saying, because that's what you're used to and that's what you do. And I don't like comfort zone. So what's going to be your next move to get out of that comfort zone into the next level?
Comfort zone, Mark, by working within the community, or
in terms of it really well. It's a pro. I'll give you an example. Before I worked on 747s, I worked on old things like Vickers Viscounts and DC-8s, which are no longer. I don't even think they're flying anymore. But that became something that I knew so well that somebody could wake me up at 3:00 in the morning when I'm on call and say, we've got this problem, what do we do? I'll ask them for symptoms, I'll tell them what to do, it'll be fixed in 10 minutes. So that was my comfort zone because I knew it really well. When I went on to 747s, it was like being an apprentice again after 20-something years in the business. So because you've been working with the mindset that you have now, that drives you, is there another level from that or is that the ultimate?
Well, I think, again, we're in a really, really fortunate place because we're living through technology revolution, like the Industrial Revolution years ago. Tech is moving so quickly, and for me is trying to find that marriage between online, digital, and face-to-face community. How do you bring the two elements together? Still, because we're living in a very small world now. The whole remote working, what we're doing now, has made the world a smaller place. So you can get services from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But equally, we've also got our own communities. There was a piece of research, and I can't quite remember who it was done by. There's a village in Sardinia that has got the most people, the centurions, so living over 100 years.
Yeah.
And there was some research done as to why that is. And it basically came down to human contact. When we meet face to face, in person, we produce some endorphins, that makes us feel better. And they did some research about, do you get the same when you're doing things virtually?
Yeah.
You get something, but not to that same level.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the journey is around combining the tech and the digital to also then present on a local level, that it still creates that community. You see the youngsters now behind their tablets, and a lot of Gen Z and millennials don't leave their homes. Everything's online, everything gets delivered, and I think that's not healthy. So there's a challenge around how do we still push entrepreneurship, because again, I think countries are much stronger places when there's a real diversity of businesses, and not in the hands of a few people, but in the hands of many people. So how do you bring that level of entrepreneurship to as many people as possible? That has to be the digital world. But then how do you also connect each person, each community together so that they're trading with each other? So I think that for me is a big challenge. I love tech, so even though I've had that community face to face, tech is a game changer. Again, a lot of research that you can start a business from your bedroom for £200 a month with a CRM, with email, with this, with that, and you can take on some of the global brands by doing. But it's not just, I'll go and get all this kit and I'll put it together and it'll happen. It's how do you take it to the next level, which ultimately the most searched for resource on our platform is sales. And I think a lot of business owners, they have that technical skill, like for engineering, like accountancy, legal, they don't know how to then sell that service to other people and bring in sales. And your business will only grow so far if you stick to friends, family, local. To scale it, it does need to become regional, national, international. So how do you marry those two things together? So that, I haven't got the answer to that, but that's what I'm looking at is tech, local, face-to-face, bring it all together, make it a much more powerful opportunity and proposition for entrepreneurs to leverage and therefore be more successful.
Excellent.
But for me, the world is a much better place if we've got millions of businesses taking their little bit rather than a few taking a big chunk.
Brilliant. I like that outlook, Sid. So how can people get in touch with you? I am going to put this on the screen after, I'll do the editing. But, just give us contact details. How do people reach you? And we'll go from there.
Well, you've got my LinkedIn. Well, just go and get the LinkedIn handle. The email is sid, SID, @findabusinessexpert.com. Always happy to take phone calls as well. So, my mobile number, 07717212394. And then my LinkedIn handle is linkedin.com/ /FABE, FABE-SID. So there, email, mobile, or LinkedIn. And I say to people, just follow me. Follow me on LinkedIn. at some stage, hopefully I'll post something that is of interest to you. And when it's of interest, then just reach out to me and have a conversation. But my goal is to just spread my knowledge, spread that sort of wealth as far as we can, get more people involved in entrepreneurship, more people, again, good ideas are not confined to wealthy people or people who have got a network of entrepreneurs available to them. Everybody is able to do it. And sometimes what we find is certain sectors of the community, maybe just aren't confident about talking to business owners. On our platform, you can talk to anybody online, build your confidence, build your knowledge, give that whatever that thing is that's giving you an itch, scratch the itch, have a go, just go and have a go. And then at least later on in life, if it hasn't worked, you can say, I tried it, it didn't work. But if you do all the right things, then you've got a good chance of it working as much as anybody else.
Sid, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here. A wealth of experience and knowledge that's going to be of benefit not just to me, but to everybody else. So thank you for coming, Sid, and I'll be in touch with you again. Thank you to everyone for listening, and I hope you've got some value from this. Please like and subscribe, leave comments in the comments box below. Let us know what we're doing well, what we need to do better, and we'll do our best to take that on board. So Mark Sauls from OpsDel3000.com and Bhupinder Sidhu from Find a Business Expert out.
Thank you.